1540, when Pararajasegaran had a conflict with Sannilli, the Jaffna king took Sannilli's valuable treasures, crown, and other ornaments without his knowledge and preserved them at Pulattuvaram. From there he proceeded to Tirukkediswaram and later to Rameswaram. So far, we've made an attempt to give you a clear picture about the rise and decline of famous Tamil civilizations over many centuries and how the history of Thondamanaru is interwoven with these glorious civilizations. Several research documents, memoirs of scholars, travelers, ancient legends, chronicles, and epics during the Mahavamsa, Ramayana, and Manimeghalai were used to compile this picture. Next, we shall explore the advent of the Europeans to Tamil Ulam, the reluctance of our nation to be enslaved by the invaders, and how we were deceived by traitors, resulting in the current dire situation. The Portuguese were the first Europeans to invade the island of Ceylon. A Portuguese fleet driven by a storm began to retreat to a place close to Gaul in 1505. At this time, Ceylon was divided into many political units. The kingdom of Kotte was ruled by Vijayabahu VII, who considered himself the supreme ruler of Ceylon. Maya Dunne, who ruled Ruhuna, was trying to bring Kotte under his control. The king of Kandy was so powerful that the rulers of Kotte and Ruhuna could not challenge him. The king of Jaffna extended his authority over Mannar and remained a powerful ruler. The chieftains of Vanni accepted the authority of the Jaffna kingdom. The leaders of Vanni, who exercised their authority over Trincomalee and Betikolo, also had contacts with the ruler of Kandy. Since the rule of Ceylon was divided among several kingdoms, conflict often arose. The Kotte Empire became politically unstable, creating a situation that was favorable to the Portuguese. Although the ruler of Kotte considered himself the paramount leader of Ceylon, his actual authority was confined to the kingdom of Kotte, and the other three rulers were considered his enemies. To protect himself from his rivals, he sought refuge with the Portuguese. When the Portuguese gained control over the kingdom of Kotte, they claimed that they had legal right to maintain political authority over the whole country, a privilege that even the king of Kotte could not exercise. If the ruler of Jaffna had been politically weak and had sought the protection of the Portuguese, Jaffna would have become the capital of Ceylon. The ruler of Kotte sacrificed the sovereignty of the country for his own selfish interests, whereas the rulers of Jaffna and other kingdoms were willing to endure extensive loss and suffering in order to drive away the foreigners from Ceylon. When the Portuguese brought the Kotte kingdom under their influence in 1510, many Sinhalese and Muslims in Kotte were bitterly opposed to them. At this juncture, the ruler of Ruhuna established his capital at the bank of the Sitawake River and enforced his authority. The Portuguese could not enter Ruhuna kingdom. The king Mayan Dunne constructed a big Bhairavar temple there and became a devotee. The Portuguese referred to him as an Indian. In 1551, Raja Sinha renovated the temple and kept many religious devotees to chant devotional hymns. The ruler of Kotte realized that there was danger to his authority from various sources and so wanted to come to a settlement with Sannilli, the king of Jaffna. He carried the tooth relic of the Buddha with him to Jaffna and asked for protection. When Sannilli met with him at the fort, there was an accidental fire in the pit where the gunpowder was kept. Sannilli became suspicious and killed the king of Kotte and his entourage. The tooth relic thereafter remained with the king of Jaffna. It is said that in 1560, when the Portuguese defeated the ruler of Jaffna, the tooth relic was taken and burnt by the invaders. For 40 years, the Portuguese did not interfere with the Jaffna kingdom for fear of Sigarajasegaram, the ruler of Jaffna. Although the Portuguese controlled both Kotte and Ruhuna, they were unhappy that they couldn't exert their authority over the kingdom of Jaffna. In 1560, the Portuguese marched to the Jaffna kingdom with thousands of Sinhalese soldiers, along with a strong navy of 70 ships on order of the King of Portugal. The ruler of the Jaffna kingdom was defeated. However, he inflicted severe destruction on the Portuguese before fleeing to Vanni. The Tamil army in Vanni continued to wage war with the invaders. The Portuguese made a truce with Sannilli and claimed tribute to him. But Sannilli continued to fight with the Portuguese and died on October 1591. The Sinhalese played a significant role in the downfall of Sannilli by helping the Portuguese. Rule under the Portuguese was very harsh. Many Hindu temples were demolished and churches were erected in their place. People were converted to Catholicism. The invaders destroyed almost all the Hindu temples except Kadirkamam. The glorious ancient Koneswar temple in Thondamanaru was destroyed and a Christian church built in its place. However, the people demolished the church and reconstructed the Koneswar temple. The foundation of the Christian church can be seen behind the Koneswar temple even today. Philip Balduis, a Portuguese priest, in his book A Description of Ceylon, published in 1672, mentioned that at the time both Sinhalese and Tamil were spoken in Ceylon. He wrote that Sinhalese was spoken in the areas from the north of Nagambu up to Colombo, Kaluttura, Mantra and Gal. Tamil was spoken in all other parts of the island. The Tamils revolted against the Portuguese in 1619 under the leadership of Karayaran, a local chief, but the Portuguese emerged victorious. In 1620, Sinna Muhupillai, a confederate of Sannilli, came to Thondamanaru from India with 12 ships and more than 1,000 soldiers with the help of Nayaka, Fer do Quez, originally from Portugal, who lived in India and Ceylon, mentioned on page 636 of his book, The Temporal and Spiritual Conquest of Ceylon, Part 2, that when the Portuguese heard about the landing of the great army, they marched from Mannar through Kangeswaran, harassed women, slaughtered children, and committed many atrocities to overcome their fear of the Tamil army. He also mentioned that although the Portuguese commander was wounded by a spear used by the Tamils, in the end the Tamil army was defeated by the Portuguese. This was the last time major war waged by the Tamils against the foreigners at that time, and Thondamanaru was part of the history. Ceylon was next invaded by the Dutch, who gained control over Batticaloa in 1602. They were unable to establish their authority and ruled Ceylon until 1795. The temples that were destroyed by the Portuguese were reconstructed by the Dutch. After this, the British ruled Ceylon for about 150 years. During this period, the Tamils were able to strengthen their position. Around 1800, the famous families of Andiyappar, Marudar Kadirkamar, descendants of Pallava Thondayar dynasty, lived in the village of Thondamanaru. The nephews of Sinna Andiyappar, Ramasamy and Kandaya, and their school friend, the father of S.J.V. Selvanayagam, went to Malaysia in 1888. They were the first to go abroad from this village. The relatives followed them, and many still live there holding important positions. Sinna Thambi Kulasingam and Arunachalam were in the administrative service, Alagendra in the security service, Francis Nesaratnam in the Army and Foreign Services Department, Muthu Ramalingam in the Judicial Department, and T. Nallathambi in the administrative service. Nallathambi, who also participated in the struggle for independence of India under Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, later came back to Thondamanaru and engaged in many social services for the village. He initiated the village development organization and constructed a building for the same. In 1867, there were no proper roads in the Jaffna Peninsula and the streets were covered with thick bushes and trees. Thieves made use of this situation to plunder. The Duke, who represented Britain, constructed new roads, cleared the thick bushes, and planted trees along the roads. He took stern measures against thieves, undermining their activities. Roads and bridges were constructed in Thondamanaru, Vallai, Koppai, Semmani, and Kaitadi. These areas were separated by the river. Yarpana Vaibhava Kaumuti mentions the work undertaken by the Duke. The Thondamanaru Bridge was constructed with the wood from palmyra and teak trees. In order to meet the expenses incurred with regard to the construction of the bridge, a tax was imposed on travelers for a short time. The wooden bridge was used until a new bridge was officially opened by then Prime Minister Sir John Kottalawala on October 2, 1954. Veerahatti Pillai, another nephew of Sinna Andiyappar, followed the example of his ancestors and engaged in trade with Malaysia, Burma, and India. He owned 8 ships, including Devanayaki, which could carry a load of 8,600 sacks of rice. His first ship, Vallinayaki, brought teak trees from Rangoon to Jaffna. Veerahatti Pillai also engaged in public service. He established a school in 1912 that was named in his honor as Veerahatti Pillai Mahavidyalayam. The school catered to the needs of the people of Thondamanaru and neighboring villages. This was a noble service to the community. Ancient cities and civilizations were mostly shaped by rivers and places of worship. Rivers and water sources provided food and means of transport and made people rich and prosperous. Places of worship gave them spiritual guidance to lead a peaceful life. Ancient Tamils identify 5 categories of distinct landscapes, and it is very rare to find all these features in one location. However, Thondamanaru is blessed with all 5 categories of landscapes, and as a rare gift, Lord Murugan selected the banks of the Valli Nadi as his choice of seat for the benefit of mankind. The Selva Sannilli temple and the village of Thondamanaru are unique in history, surroundings, tradition, and holiness. Selva Sannilli Murugan enjoys the riverbank where he abodes. He rejoices in the environment in which the descendants of the Pallava Thondayar dynasty live. Lord Murugan appreciates the unique religious rites of this temple. He loves his numerous devotees from Thondamanaru and the surrounding villages. When the devotees see him, they are overjoyed. He is fondly known as Aatangariyan, Ananda Kandan, Kallode Kandan. From the banks of the Thondamanaru river, Selva Sannilli Murugan gives his total blessing to all those who seek him and submit themselves to him. The freshwater Valli Nadi and the lofty groves that surrounded Thondamanaru motivated many sages to live there in thatched huts. They built a temple to the north of the present Selva Sannilli temple for their worship. If you dig deep near the shores of the river, you will find seashells below 5 feet depth. But this phenomenon is not found in the areas surrounding the Selva Sannilli temple. This reveals that Selva Sannilli must have been constructed before the Valli Nadi was deepened by Thondaiman in 700 AD. This temple, like other temples, was destroyed during the Portuguese regime in Ceylon. On March 30th, 1840, Lord Murugan gave his blessings to Maradar Kadirkamar, a devotee of the fisherman caste, and requested him to construct a temple on the banks of the Valli Nadi beside the Porsche tree. Lord Murugan also gave his blessings to Sinna Andiyappar and asked him to help Kadirkamar in constructing the temple. This information is provided in books that were written in the 1900s. Kadirkamar commenced his religious rites and puja under the guidance of Lord Murugan on the last Sunday of November 1840. The descendants of Andiyappar celebrate this religious festival known as Andiyappar Puja even now in Selva Sannilli temple. On this day, members of the Andiyappar family go on a procession through the streets of Thondamanaru to the temple and participate in the religious ceremony. The festival was first celebrated with the support of the people of Kadirippai, Valvatitturai, Udupatti, Attriveli, and later devotees from all over Tamilam. There are many other religious festivals that are unique to this temple, which are patronized by other families in Thondamanaru. In 1927, when Mahatma Gandhi visited Ceylon in connection with the independence struggle for India, he also visited Thondamanaru. He was given a rousing welcome by the people of Thondamanaru, along with a donation for the independence struggle. In 1937, the British governor of Ceylon, Sir Andrew Caldelot, visited Thondamanaru as a guest with his friend Suppaya, the son of Veerakhatti Pillai. When the southwest monsoon became severe, the west coast fishermen moved their fishing vessels from Puttalam to Chilo to Mullaitivu for fishing. They used the Thondamanaru lagoon to anchor their vessels in the interior of the river before proceeding to their destination. People from neighboring villages used to gather in large numbers to see the hundreds of fishing boats of different colors lining the banks of the lagoon. This pleasant sight could be witnessed in Thondamanaru until just recently. Uppumal in Thondamanaru continued to function as an exporting center for salt until 1948, when the salt production from Karanavai and Vallapparavai was stopped. In 1954, Murugappillai Navaratnasamy of Thondamanaru brought fame and honor to the Tamils of Eelam in the area of international sports. On March 25, 1954, Navaratnasamy, 44 years of age and the father of 3 children, swam across the Palk Strait from the Valvatitturai coast to Vedaranyam, India. The Palk Strait, 32 miles long, was deep and full of rapids. Navaratnasamy took 27 hours to swim across, establishing a world record. Despite the fact that it was very late at night and dark, more than 4,000 people waited to welcome him when he reached the Indian coast. The people who were gathered there accompanied him in procession in Vedaranyam. On his return to Valvatitturai, Navaratnasamy was met by more than 10,000 supporters and many distinguished guests, including Mr. P.T. Lutsen, the government agent, Bar Kumara Kulasingam, the Indian High Commissioner for Ceylon, Dr. N.M. Pereira, and the Velvetithura Town Council Chairman, Mr. S.S. Sundaralingam. Newspapers in Ceylon and India praised him in bold letters. Navaratna Sami was given a rousing welcome throughout the island. In a reception held in Colombo to honor him, the then Prime Minister, Sir John Kotelawala, participated and presented him with an award. Navaratna Sami also received congratulatory messages from foreign leaders including Pandit Nehru, the Prime Minister of India at the time. He was introduced to Queen Elizabeth II and the Duke of Edinburgh by the Prime Minister of Ceylon. The Queen presented him with the British Empire Gold Medal for his daring venture. Another distinguished son of Thondamanaru was Justice Pon Sri Skandaraja, who accomplished a lot in the area of judicial administration. Pon Sri Skandaraja was born in Thondamanaru in 1905. While studying at Vaddukodai Jaffna College and Jaffna Central College, he distinguished himself in sports. After graduating from Colombo Law College, he began to officiate as an attorney in 1928. While serving as a magistrate in Jaffna and Point Pedro district courts, Pon Sri Skandaraja assumed duties as the regional magistrate in 1934. When serving in Colombo in 1946, a case against Butrakita Thero in connection with a Buddhist vihara was submitted to him for inquiry. In this case, he had to take action against J.R. Jayawardene, who was the then Minister of Home Affairs. Despite the interference of D.S. Senanayaka, the then Prime Minister, Sri Skandaraja maintained justice. In view of this firm stand taken by him, he was denied any promotions and subjected to many difficulties and partiality. When he was appointed the Special Commissioner of the Sessional Supreme Court, he became famous for taking the oath in Tamil. In 1962, there was an organized coup against the government and major army officers were arrested and summoned to trial at bar. At this juncture, Sri Skandaraja got a promotion as judge of the Supreme Court and was appointed as one of the 3 judges to inquire the case. When the Supreme Court was established in 1963, without any precedent, Sri Skandaraja participated in the special religious ceremony at Nellur Kandasamy Temple and commenced the session of the Supreme Court. While he officiated as the judge of the Supreme Court, many prominent cases were taken up for trial. His decisions in 9 cases were challenged. Appeals were made to the Privy Council, which reaffirmed his ruling. This was a great honor for him. The entire Tamil nation cannot forget our beloved son Thurairatnam MP. Kadirpillai Thurairatnam, while being a teacher, was attracted by the policies adopted by S.J.V. Selvanayagam. Right from the beginning, he was liked by the people of his region. Thurairatnam was elected as a Member of Parliament 6 consecutive times representing the Point Pedro constituency. He actively participated in all the political struggles and campaigns organized by the Federal Party and the Tamil United Front. He was attacked by the army and cast into prison several times. He was genuine and unassuming in his outlook and approach. His service was not confined to his constituency but included the whole Tamil nation. The fishermen in the coastal area of his constituency were well attended to whenever they had problems. They had such faith in him that the Vadamarachi East fishermen invited him to commence the seasonal fishing every year. He initiated the cultivation of grapes in the Jaffna region, which greatly benefited the Jaffna Peninsula economically. He was very keen in promoting the export of onions and other agricultural produce from Tamil areas to the south. Fellow members of Parliament respected his speeches with regard to the economy and education. In 1976, some people wanted to make Selva Sannilli Temple public property. A commission of inquiry was appointed by the government to investigate this matter and submit a report. The hearing took place in the chamber of the Thondamanaru Rural Council. Evidence and witnesses were favorable to those who submitted the petition to make the temple public. At this juncture, Thurairatnam MP put forward his proposal. He was a devotee of Sannidhi Murugan and provided strong factual evidence against the petition. He made a very emotional appeal to the panel for the temple to remain as it was. When he presented his opinion, those who listened to him realized the uniqueness of Sannidhi Murugan. They were very surprised, for they felt that it was not Thureretnam MP who was speaking. They felt that it was Sannilli Murugan who personally came to address them. It was the grace of Sannilli Murugan, his authority, the purity of the temple, and its distinct traditions that made the commission feel that Lord Murugan also wished to maintain the unique setup of Selva Sannilli. As a result, the commission reported to the government that the uniqueness of the temple should be preserved. Thureretnam MP, along with K.P. Ratnam, Amrita Lingam, and Navaratnam, were arrested under the Terrorism Act of Sri Lankan government for issuing pamphlets in connection with the formation of an independent Tamil Eelam. Those members of parliament were imprisoned and brought to trial at bar. Prominent lawyers M. Thiruchelvam, G.G. Ponnambalam, and S.J.V. Chelvanayagam appeared on behalf of the accused and argued that the Tamils had the right to self-determination and to form a separate state. They also argued that the new constitution and the state of emergency were unacceptable and illegal according to the existing British constitution. This case showed the world that the Tamils had the right to reclaim their state. When the government realized that the political setup and the emergency regulations were not going to be binding, it withdrew the case in 1976. This case gave the first opportunity on a democratic and legal basis to explain the right to self-determination of the Tamil people. Thureretnam was popularly referred to as a revolutionary. He was a comrade of the peasants, a friend to the fishermen, and a fraternal friend of the poor. Thondamanaru is proud of such a remarkable son. During the 1962 general election, the Federal Party, the Tamil Congress, and the Leftist Party were busy campaigning for the Point Pedro constituency, and propaganda reached its peak. The three candidates, K. Thureretnam, N. Nadaraja, and S. Motilal Nehru, appeared on the same platform for the first time in the history of Ceylon to explain the public their respective political principles. The meeting was held peacefully at Thondamanaru Beach. The organizers of this meeting, A. Visagaratnam, M. Tilagaraja, and S. Sivasambhu, were praised by the public for conducting the meeting in an organized manner. Mr. Veluppillai Prabhakaran, who was a student at the time, became aware of the atrocities and injustices perpetrated by the Singhalese armed forces and realized that the change in constitution would bring the Tamils back to slavery permanently. He mentions in his memoirs that he decided to show his opposition to the actions of the government and armed forces to bring attention to the grievances of Tamils. In 1972, Mr. Prabhakaran began his protest by setting fire to a bus, which was government property. This happened in Thondamanaru, near the Konesar temple. It is a coincidence that the first form of armed resistance in the struggle for Eelam was committed in the same village and the same place where, in 1620 AD, the last war was waged against the Portuguese invaders. Mr. Veluppillai Prabhakaran, the national leader of the Tamils, solicited the support of Kuttimani, Thangathurai, and Jagan from the very inception of the struggle, demonstrating that Thondamanaru has renewed its heroic role in history. In 1980, work was begun to construct an artistic chariot for Selva Sannilli Murugan. People young and old from Thondamanaru and the rest of Tamil Eelam worked day and night for this venture, for their Lord Murugan. This endeavor demonstrated their hard work and unity to the rest of the world. The chariot, with 6 wheels, each 15 inches thick and 6 feet high, and with more than 500 sculptures carved by famous sculptors from Tamil Nadu and Ceylon, was completed in 1984. The rays from the morning sun shone brightly on the brass plates of the chariot, while 1,008 bells made of bronze rang aloud. This artistic chariot was comparable to those found in India. Lord Murugan was seated in a sandalwood throne in the chariot that stood 45 feet high. The devotees who saw this astounding reflection of Sannilli Murugan in the chariot were absorbed in supreme bliss. Tragically, this chariot was burned down by the Sri Lankan armed forces in 1986. So far, we have looked at the history of Ceylon and the history of Thondamanaru with reference to extensive research and introductory notes. We are able to discern the excellence of the Tamils by examining the development of a village. The history of Eelam is synonymous with the historical development of many towns and villages. When the history of these communities is brought together, it translates into the history of a nation. If each and every town and village researched its roots, it would help us to determine the history and excellence of the Tamil nation. We hope that our venture will be a valuable guide, encouraging others to embark on research about their communities in Tamileelam.
தமிழானி தமிழீழ வரலாறு கேளடாம் உன் தாய் நாடு நிமிர் ஓடு வாழ நீ வாழடாம் ஆன்றோர் என் தமிழ் நாகர் அரசாண்ட நாடு ஆற்றவான் ராவணன் முரசாண்ட நாடு சான்றோர் எல்லாம்